Welcome back, everyone. It's been a while. It's been about a month up in here. So I hope everyone's doing pretty well. Hopefully some of the usual suspects are going to be on this one. So with that, I'm going to try to get started with all the stuff I always prepare, which is a little bit obsessive compulsive, but I got to go through the motions. So welcome. Happy March. Today, I don't think I have as much material as I normally do, but I still have some. And today I'm going to be asking for a ton of feedback from the audience on some stuff that I'm working through. So the first thing I'm going to do is just talk about some upcoming episodes that I have in, at least ready. So the first, I'm just going to go straight to it. So White Moths in February, I actually did the interview today. So I expect it to appear on Monday or Wednesday of next week. I was gearing up for a pretty long time. I read about 4 books. I didn't get through all of them, but I read most of them for written by Whitley Strieber. And I tried to keep it super focused because Whitley has a book coming out tomorrow called Them. And we talked a little bit about that. We talked about the little blue beings. He refers to as kobolds. They're kind of dark blue. And kind of the question I asked, what are these kobold beings as psychopomps? And you can look that fancy word up. But Whitley didn't even blink. He just went into it. We talked a little bit about soul machines. So the use of souls to power machines, which is a pretty creepy topic for sure. And we talked about White Moths in February. And, you can definitely tune in to see that. Now, I don't have any other thumbnails, but I think my third highest episode by views was an episode that I did with Lynn Buchanan on kind of the mass die-off that as a remote viewer he saw in 2040. So by popular demand, we did a revision, not a revision, but I did another interview with him last night, and I'm currently in the stages of editing it, but it will be available either on Wednesday or on Wednesday, Monday or Wednesday of next week, just depending on which one of those two episodes I get done. I have another interview scheduled with Deb Cauble, who's an experiencer. Terry Lovelace highly recommended her, so I reached out to her, and she's going to be on the podcast. The other one, I don't know if I told you guys this, but I might as well put it out there because usually when I tell you guys these interviews work out, there's the probability of a no show goes to like 0%. Like it might be a no show that day, but I eventually talk to him. But I booked an interview with Gary Nolan in June. If you all don't know who Gary Nolan is, he is a professor of immunology at the Stanford School of Medicine. And he kind of as a side project, he's sold many companies and businesses and is doing relatively well for himself. So he can afford to stick his neck out on doing a lot of these, focusing on the kind of paranormal topics, particularly UFOs, UAPs, that sort of phenomena. So that won't be for a while, but I am super excited about it. And, I think you all would definitely be interested to hear how that goes. So I've also reached out to a bunch of other people. I'm trying to get Tom Campbell. He's a physicist. He was one of the initial people who worked on the Gateway Project at the Monroe Institute. I was just told by his secretary to reach out to him again in April, which I absolutely will. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff. I usually like to be a month ahead, and I feel really uncomfortable being, I at least have enough interviews to be a week ahead, but I need to get cracking on getting more content into the engine. But there's definitely going to be a lot of stuff that's pretty interesting. Okay, let me just do a quick check of the comments. Millie, welcome. I don't know what you saw because I didn't see when you posted it, but thanks for joining. I appreciate it, and I hope you're able to enjoy these episodes. And by the way, if you haven't seen the Terry Lovelace episodes, definitely highly encourage you to watch it because there's some crazy stuff in there. By crazy, I mean just he's got evidence of an implant in his right knee that does not look like it came from any terrestrial source. And it's built out of his own bone structure. And yeah, a little interference over here. So sorry about that. Anyway, make sure you watch that because there's also a device that looks like another chip in his knee. It actually looks like a chip. It looks like some sort of a bug placed there by a U.S. intelligence agency. And I would know what a chip looks like because I have a degree in electrical engineering from way back when, and it looks exactly like a standard square microchip that we might use. So potentially RFID chip, but whatever non-human entity planted the first one in there, in my opinion, some government entity planted the second one. And the second one was either to track him, to monitor any signals coming out of the other device, or both. I suspect it was both, but anyway, definitely do not miss that episode. All right, so I think, and I'm also trying to get Grant Cameron on again because I think a few people expressed an interest in learning more about portals, and Grant Cameron is has prolifically written about portals and things like that. So I'm still trying to schedule a time with him, but the sooner I get that done, the better. I also want to do some more geopolitical episodes. I just haven't gotten around to it. Sean, I was going to try to get Sean McFate back on, but he's super busy this month. Hopefully next month, because I've kind of ignored what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, and all that good stuff. The latest thing I saw is they were bringing T-55s, like this ancient tank, to the battlefield. And anyway, there's a lot of weird, interesting stuff that's going on with that. So okay, so let me get to the next. Let me get to the next piece here. Okay, so for people who are morbidly curious, this is just more. I'm going to try to go through this super quickly because I just also want to show people how this channel grows. I started it from scratch in January of last year, and right now we're around 1,425 subscribers. So it's growing. It's just, these things are always hard. It felt like it took forever to monetize and all that good stuff, but I want to just give you guys be able to peek behind the wall for a little bit. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. Let's see. So move that so it's a little bit easier to see. And then we will go like that. All right. So 3 months, right? And we're not even done the first month. I didn't monetize until 9 days into January. But as you can see, I'm making some big bucks here. Big bucks. So, look, it's getting better. February was the biggest month because when Ryan Macbeth came on here, he posted on his community tab, and that means that I didn't get Sean Hazlett impressions. I got Ryan Macbeth impressions. And impressions are how many times YouTube shows your content to different people. So I got, something like 100,000 impressions at the same conversion rate that I would have, which, YouTube probably, sends me 1% of that. So they might show my videos 1,000 times, but 1,000 times at, 4% with a thumbnail on my end versus 100,000 times. Or maybe 100,000 times at a 4% or 5% conversion rate, obviously is 100 times the impressions that I would have gotten on my own. So, YouTube has definitely got its little algorithm going on, and the fact that I was able to perform at that level of impressions at the same level I was at a much smaller level of impressions was helpful. But the bottom line is, I got a boost because his audience was looking at my stuff, and if you're a member, one of his followers or subscribers, thank you for joining and thank you for sticking with me. I really appreciate it because he's an amazing guy. And we may have future plans in other areas that unrelated to YouTube, but until that manifests itself, I'll we'll see how that goes. But like I said, you can see the top content was from his impressions, and then the Stefan Schwartz stuff is performing pretty well. As is the Grant Cameron. And then I'm getting better at this playback-based CPM. Last month it was less than 6. It was around 561 or something like that. So it's getting better, and I'm getting better at getting this all. And by the way, I got my first super thanks. So I am over the moon for that. I really appreciate it. So that's definitely part of the picture. All right, so I think that is enough for that. Okay, let me see. Got no questions so far. So going to the next. Again, current projects. Last month, a day before Valentine's Day, I submitted Weird World War China, and I still haven't gotten to finishing my novel, Wormwood Down, yet. I still have 5 chapters. But starting, I think, end of this week and next week, I'm going to try to knock out as much as I can because it just needs to. It's the thing has 40 chapters. It's supposed to have 40 chapters in it, and I have 5 left. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to bang that out and complete it. So that's kind of where I stand. I already talked about where I was in the YouTube piece. Now I'm gonna. Hopefully, this is. I think what I'm going to try to do is jump to questions, because the next two things actually require a lot of participation. And, I think with once I get into questions and get everybody's juices flowing, then I'll go back to the other two things just because, you know, it kind of is what it is. Okay. So, anybody have any questions about the channel or want to talk about anything or want me to talk about anything at length? I can talk about a lot of stuff. So, I can talk about Silicon Valley Bank if you really want me to talk about that crazy, that stuff. I could talk about future guests, also questions that you might want to ask future guests. And I also need to get Morehouse back on. There's one episode that I want to do with him. He's been super busy recently. So, um, yeah. So, who was everybody's favorite guest so far? Anyone? Oh yeah, yeah. Let me just put this up. I've had 3 episodes with her on. So the issue with those episodes, the reason you probably haven't found them, is I was experimenting with different kinds of thumbnails, and that was the period of time. And Lynn Buchanan also suffered from this experiment, unfortunately. So I will probably update it, but there are 3 episodes that involve her. So I'm going to go back here and let's see. Let me just find an efficient way to share this with you. Okay. So her episodes are, just be able to see a little bit more of this. Just bear with me. You raised a great question, but there's a reason you weren't able to immediately find her episodes. Okay, so this is the first one. Transmissions from Your Future Self. It's about retro causality. So that's the last one we did together. And then we did one on the Kinross incident and other ET encounters. So there's actually a playlist. There's a playlist where you can get all 3 episodes, but I'm going to update this thumbnail and I'm going to put her picture on there, but like I said, Lynn and Lori both suffered from that test, as did Dave Brown, which is down there. But let me find one more. This is the Lynn Buchanan episode I was talking about, and then this is the last one, which is Psychic Child or Poltergeist. This was kind of her origin story, so to speak, because I like to do that with all the remote viewers who come on. So 3 episodes with Lori, and let me move that. Okay. And then back to the comments. Yeah, so Lori's definitely be on. Is there, Edward? By the way, thank you for joining this stream. Is there anybody else that you'd like to see on this podcast? There's a lot of guests have been giving me a lot of good ideas, as have subscribers. So also let me send this out so that more people join. Let's see. Okay. All right. What are the questions you folks have? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me just pull this up. So I interviewed Whitley Strieber this morning. So he will be on either Monday or Wednesday of next week. I'm halfway through editing the audio. I'll be done the audio hopefully tonight, and then just have to edit the video and then process it and schedule it for Monday morning. So it should be, the aim is to have it uploaded by 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern on Monday. So definitely, and that's definitely a great question. Ed, Edward or Ed, what what works better for you? And then the other thing we're going to do, let's go to Facebook real quick, let people know. The other weird thing about this uh, live session is I moved it to Wednesdays because I was unnecessarily competing with the Y files, and AJ's going to win every time. So let's post this guy. Oh, it looks like some. Oh, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, Silicon Valley Bank. Okay, Edward. Thank you, Edward. All right, so I'm just gonna go into this super high level, so I don't want to bore too many people. So what effectively happened is it was a run on the bank, and it was caused by a number of factors. So the first thing is Silicon Valley Bank had relatively long dated treasuries that were paying extremely low interest rates, and the Fed has raised interest rates so quickly that the mismatch between what they were getting and what they had to pay their depositors was causing a bit of instability. There's some venture capitalists that saw that. They urged all their portfolio companies to withdraw money from the bank. And then that caused a bank run. And the reason bank runs are a huge problem is that the amount of money that a bank has is not equal to the deposits that are in it. It's actually a fraction of that. And that is controlled by what's called the reserve requirement. So whenever the Federal Reserve wants to increase the money supply into the system, they'll lower the reserve requirement, which is the percentage of customer deposits that a bank has to keep in its on hand. And when they want to raise rates, one of the things that they can do is they can increase the reserve requirement so that banks pull money out of the system. So as a result, if 100% of depositors go and try to take out all their money all at once, you do this to any bank. Any bank. If 100% of the depositors go and try to take their money out all at once, the bank will fail. And that's every bank in this system. So there is kind of this 250K FDI FDIC insurance and things like that. And there's a lot of arguments that, companies should have a better risk management policy, and they should have looked at this. But if you're a company like Roku, which had $487 million in cash at Silicon Valley Bank, in order to fully manage your investment and protect yourself, you would have had to open up 1,950 separate accounts in 1,950 separate financial institutions. So when you hear that argument, it's not a smart argument. It's somebody who's fundamentally ignorant, and it's coming mostly from politicians. At the end of the day, I think the way the government handled the crisis was the right way, which was the people who, for lack of a better word, mismanaged the bank by putting things in long-term treasuries. That's the issue. Treasuries are very safe, but they put their money in long-term treasuries. They all lost their jobs, and equity holders who had invested in Silicon Valley Bank were wiped out. So, you know, anybody who worked there lost. The people who were making the decisions got punished. Now, the depositors are going to get all their money back, even above and beyond the FDIC insurance. And the reason that the government had to do that is that if there were people who had a bank and they had more than 250K in the bank in savings, and the government just said, "Oh, should have had FDIC insurance. Oh well." Every person with a dollar above 250K would have rushed to their banks and would have withdrawn everything over that amount and tried to put it in a larger bank, etc. So that would effectively cause a systemic collapse of the US banking system, and by extension, the global economic system. So the way that the government handled it, I think, was they were the adults in the room, and anybody who else said, "Oh, just let them, screw the depositors," those people are idiots, and you should never listen to them. So and again, that's a nonpartisan comment. I have a 20-year plus career in finance. I worked in financial services at Morgan Stanley, and all the way up to being a CFO of a company. So that's kind of how things worked out. So anyway, what other questions do you have? I probably interestingly, I think 2 more people joined the call since I started talking about banks, even though they're probably like, what did I just get myself into? This is like military science fiction, in fact, meets the paranormal, and this clown's talking about banks. But I guess I can slip it into like the geopolitical aspect of the channel, because it really is. It's a major risk, because the banking system, collapses like that. The U.S. has a lot more problems than what's going on in Russia, Ukraine. I mean, it would be chaos. So, okay. So going back to other questions, what guests would you like to see on the channel in the future? Give some folks some time to think about that. And also, what other guests would you like to have back? Because I can always go back and ask for folks. That's one question. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, obviously the interview's not live. Well, it's live for me, but it's not live for the audience. But it's fun because I have a tendency, there's some questions. I mean, there's some guests that kind of have like a spiel, and they just kind of go through the spiel. Those I don't think have been those episodes I don't think have been as rewarding for me or for the audience. But then there's some where there's a genuine interaction, and a lot of times I ask them questions that they haven't considered. So I'm just putting you up here for clarification, because yeah. Oh, yeah. So Daz Smith, I have 3 episodes with him, and you could definitely see his face on them. So I think we We talked about his I'm trying to think exactly. So one we talked about his remote viewing of the Havana syndrome and how it was related to the damage done to some of the military operatives at Skinwalker Ranch. So it's something, related, it's something related to both. Then we did one on why aren't remote viewers millionaires? And we discussed kind of what we thought about that. And he also talked about some of his crypto viewing. And then we did a third episode. I think it was just about his background and things like that. But I'd have to. But again, there's a whole playlist. If you look at the playlists and look for Daz Smith, you can see all three episodes. Edward Reardon, I have not had on, so I think I need to find a way of reaching out to him and figuring it out. But that's actually a good one, Millie. I actually really appreciate that. And then let me go back to Edward's question because I definitely didn't fully answer it. In terms of my let me show you something. Let me see if I can do this. Sorry, this is definitely going to be worth it. Trust me. Let me find a way to do this. Yeah, so yeah, not gonna happen. Look, I'm not a fan. I had a top secret SCI security clearance, and because of what this rat bastard did, um, everyone with a top secret SCI clearance had their information, basically their top secret applications, linked to the Chinese because the Chinese hacked it was the OPM hack, Office of Personnel Management hack in 2014. So I am very aggressively not a fan of Edward Snowden, and it is my crowning achievement on Twitter to be blocked by him. So anyway, channelers. So all right, I'm glad you took that. I was worried. I wouldn't want to offend anybody, but I'm glad you took that one the right way. So channelers. So I did have what's her last name? Angela. Let's see. So let me just remove this for now. So there was a remote viewer on Project Stargate. Her name is Angela. Here, let me just find it because it's probably easier for me to just tell you what the episodes are. Yeah, so Angela Ford. So I did, I think 3 episodes. Yes, 3 episodes with her. One was on her time at Project Stargate, and then because the one thing she did, she was and by the way, that was Daz Smith was the one who gave me the lead on that one because I had no idea. So Angela Ford did not only use remote viewing as part of Project Stargate, but she also used channeling, particularly automatic writing, and that was interesting. So we talked about that in one episode. Then she's also had some experiencer sort of things, like she saw a UFO as a kid and has had some non-physical interaction with entities. So there's an episode on that. There's a place in Washington D.C. I think it's called we call it the name of the episode is Alien Apartment. So there's a apartment in Washington D.C. that a lot of people like George Dembski, Whitley Strieber, and Angela actually lived in the apartment for a while, where a lot of experiencers would just by happenstance show up in this apartment and use it. So there's that. And then the other one was on signs and portents, where she talks about how numerology works, how channeling works, how it works for her. So yeah, definitely that. But there are many channelers that I have not had on yet. So that's a potential area of exploration. I'm still, I'm still, getting. Well, actually, another person I guess you could put in the. I don't know if it's quite channeling, but she's had very atypical interactions with non-human entities, the living, the dead, extraterrestrial or potentially extraterrestrial, and that's Elsa. And I did 2 episodes with her on transdimensional entities, and then the other one was like first contact experiences and things like that. She's in Australia, a family of 10. Mary Rodwell, I think, did hypnotherapy to suss out these experiences and things like that. So that one's like those two are on the kind of on the far end of folks that I interviewed in terms of I would say varied experiences and very different than kind of what you would expect from the average contact experience, but nevertheless interesting. And then there's also a very interesting discussion about this haunted doll that I did another episode on. That was not, it was not an interview. It was just this Japanese funeral doll that was made of human hair and teeth, and weird things happen around it. And I left a camera there overnight and all that stuff. And she had an experience by just watching the video. So it's definitely different. So I highly encourage you watching it. Okay, so yeah, excellent. Yeah. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary stuff. So there's also Stefan Schwartz that I have on the channel, and his remote viewing of 2050, kind of on the back end of all the bad stuff, is also very similar. And by the way, the Lynn Buchanan episode I just recorded is part of it's an extension of that 2040 episode. And I come back to him with some of the questions that we had about the emergence of genius children and kind of how that all fits in. And there's some theories thrown about because he's worked with some scientists at various government labs and things like that. But he doesn't know if what they told him is true or how accurate the theories are. But we go into some of that stuff. I've been reading. There's a book called The Key by Whitley Strieber. I didn't get into it at all in the interview I did with him today because he had no more than an hour and we had to quickly get through some other stuff. But there's a movie that came out called Superstorm that was based on a book that he wrote that talks about this kind of rapid climate change, but it doesn't necessarily blame humans. It's just humans may have made it happen quicker, but there's these kind of super cycles in the climate where the climate changes rapidly, i.e., in like one day, and it's kind of similar to the grim stuff that the other two were talking about. But I guess we're going to find out no matter what, right? Let's see, what else do we have? Interesting. Edward, can you say more about that? When they get, like, when you say crazy situations, is it that the hypnosis doesn't work, it fails, or is it that they're taking their clients through hypnosis and the clients report seeing otherworldly things? And because there is someone that Terry Lovelace recommended. Her name's Yvonne Smith, but I haven't done due diligence on her yet. I haven't reached out to her, but I've thought about reaching out to her to talk about some of this stuff. So definitely a good topic. There's also another. Speaking of psychologists slash psychiatrists, there's another gentleman that I haven't reached out to, but he's on my list. His name is Doctor. What's his? I'm trying to remember what his first name is, but his name's he's Dr. Gallagher, and he is like a board certified psychiatrist. He has an undergrad degree from Princeton. Uh, I think he got his medical degree from Yale. And on the side, he helps priests evaluate potential victims that require exorcisms. So he's like the science guy that comes in and rules out all the other factors. I've seen him on a number of different podcasts, but he's highly credible and would be interesting. And particularly in light of the channeling, like, is it channeling? Is it demonic? Is it both? Are they two different things? So, there's a lot of potential area for that. Oh yeah, yeah. You're talking about Stefan Schwartz. Yeah, I was just trying to be a good host. I didn't want to, because I'm a data guy too, and there are a number of holes in his argument, and I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to make it political. I just this channel isn't political, and I just kind of I'd rather keep my audience as broad as possible and not get into those sorts of topics. Suspicious observers. Oh, okay. I'll check it out. I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, I definitely want to explore some. Okay, when you're talking about hypnotherapy and things like that, yeah, there are actually hypnotherapists who focus on the past life thing. They also focus on uh, experiencers, right? Like the Bud Hopkins, and trying to remember who the Harvard researcher was who died in London, but they focused on regressing experiencers and things like that. Um, all right, well, I don't know what that's for because I'm lagging on answering everybody's question, but I think that's good. I think that's good. Um, okay. Oh, I did great on. Oh yeah, I could you see on my face that the wheels were turning, but nothing was coming out of my mouth because I was just thinking analytically. I'm like, okay, you're talking about blue states versus red states. Have you done, cities versus rural? Have you done this? Like, there's so many ways you can cut the data and you would get completely different answers. But I didn't. He kind of had his spiel, and I didn't want to get in front of that Mac truck. And also he's a guest, and he didn't have to appear in my podcast, but I'm glad he did. So, and let's see. Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. I mean, the outbreak of coronavirus certainly does, and he called it man-made natural disasters. And I mean, I think we'll get. I kind of go there in the Lynn episode, and I think he's kind of in agreement. We thought, there's kind of three theories right now. There's the bat bit a penguin, and then someone ate a penguin, and then coronavirus happened. And then the other was the Wuhan Institute of Virology is the only level 4 containment facility in all of China, and its specialty was novel coronavirus research. And it was about a block from the wet market. So I I mean, call me crazy, but there's the lab leak hypothesis. And then the one that has emerged in the last few days is the raccoon dog hypothesis, which it's just nobody at the end of the day, nobody wants to accept responsibility and or accountability for doing some dark stuff. That's my opinion. But I don't know. I just follow the evidence and you could pick which one of those three theories I believe in. I'm not going to touch it because I could get in trouble. But I think it's if you're all familiar with the term Occam's razor, if you apply Occam's razor, it's pretty obvious how it would happen, especially if you look at the behavior of officials based on whether or not they suppressed certain things that came out and elevated other theories that came out. Okay, let's see. Huh. Interesting. I can see that happening because you're and is that physically in the future, or is that just your consciousness is projected into the future? Um, I'll give you a chance to answer that. I'm just gonna move down, but that's interesting. Yeah, I think he's just got you gotta be careful because right now, like, nobody's happy with how politicians are doing, and I just the way I mentally get it is they're just all incompetent, and, I mean, literally, it's so bad right now that I think if aliens had come down and just said, "Half of you are gonna be slaves, but we'll replace your leaders," I'd be like, "Okay, sure, do it." Um, the zoo theory, is that like a 4th one? 4th thing for the outbreak of the C word? Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, that's remote viewers can do that. Not I mean, not through they're not necessarily in hypnosis, but that's actually pretty interesting. Edward, do you know any names of the people who have done that or have been regressed and then projected to the future? Because I can definitely look into that. Huh. Did it work at all for any amount of time or was it just didn't work? People who are shy on here. Edward and Millie have been asking some awesome questions, but some lurkers, some lurkers. I won't call out your name if you have any questions. I'll just answer your question. 2 months, huh? I wonder why. I mean, I'm sure a hypnotherapist would be able to answer the question right away. In fact, Terry Lovelace mentioned that he was a trained hypnotherapist, but there's some stuff he still doesn't remember, and he hasn't regressed, or he hasn't gone undergone hypnotherapy. The only hypnotherapy that he went under was not by choice. It was the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations. They had a psychologist, and psychologist. It's very important because you can't have a psychiatrist do any of this. The military doesn't use psychiatrists because they have the Hippocratic Oath. They use psychologists, and I know that because an Army psychologist told me that. So I'm not making this up. But I'd have to. I'd be interested to know how that could happen because it obviously had a duration. Obviously worked for a little bit of time. So I wonder if it just wears off or not. What's this? Huh. Absolutely. Is her email or not email, but like is her contact information readily available on the internet? Oh, whoa. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Okay, so here's the question. Millie, you're on tap. You're on tap for this one. So, Millie, who's on the thread right now, went to a hypnotherapist to stop smoking, and it worked for a month, and then it didn't, and then she started smoking again. Is there a reason? Is there some sort of time delay on the effectiveness of that, or is it more complicated than that? And just to answer you, Edward, I'll definitely look her up because I want to batch a bunch of episodes so I have I don't have to worry about scheduling. I get really nervous when I'm a week out and I have to schedule things. I mean, it's worked out so far, but it's been 15 months and I haven't missed a week yet. So I don't intend to miss a week either. So, but anyway, going back to the A Black B2, we're waiting on pins and needles, the A Black 2, to find out the answer to this question. Well, I have a bunch of other questions too, but I want to help Millie out first, and then I'd be very very interested in a lot of other things. Um, Actually, in fact, if you want to join the stream, um, it's definitely up to you. Okay, yeah, that is awesome. Okay, so I have some questions for you too, just to I'll just do one at a time because it takes you much longer to type the answer than it does for me to just throw questions at you. So, how do you know when a hypnotherapist is regressing somebody that the experience is real and or at least real to the person? Yeah, no worries at all. I mean, like I kind of just threw that out there, but I definitely appreciate these questions. But so the first question I had is how do you know that the experiences that people who you regress are real and are not influenced by either their imagination or by someone else in the room? Like, what are the controls for that? Yeah. So that's kind of the risk. And you tell me if I'm wrong. If people go to somebody who exclusively focuses on contact experiences, you have to be careful that they're not asking leading questions. Is that correct? Yeah. And in your experience, what do you have to do to become a trained hypnotherapist? Yeah. Yeah, so there's actually 2 questions. So, do most hypnotherapists allow you to record the sessions? Yeah. Okay, so it's a certain number of do you have to get a license for that, or can is it something that I mean, yeah, it sounds like you do. Okay. All right. So if someone doesn't have a license, you're more likely to be rolling the dice. I'm not saying that you are rolling the dice, but huh. Yeah, that's crazy that he just stumbled onto it where he's talking to somebody and they start speaking a language that, they don't. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Okay, so he's still around. All right. I definitely that's definitely something I wanted to explore. I also wanted to explore some near death experience stuff because I don't think I've had anybody on here who's done that either. Interesting. Now, are there any risks aside from inserting false memories to getting hypnotherapy? Like, can it screw you up in any way? Like, yeah, yeah. Can you actually, if you go to the about page, there's a thing that says for business inquiries, click here, something like that. Can you? I mean, all of you, if you want to send me ideas for people and names, just just email me. I mean, that's literally my email. Um, oh yeah, I mean, I can see this. I can see intelligence agencies using this for Manchurian candidate type stuff. Um, but I guess it's based on how suggestible somebody is. Yeah. Well, again, Terry Lovelace, when the Office of Special Investigations interrogated him, they used a mixture of hypnosis and then a drug called sodium amytal, and that also reduces barriers. Oh, cool. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it was on Twitter that you sent that to me, I think. All right, cool. Yeah, I still have to reach out. I still have to reach out to John, for sure. Um, some of the other people that I was thinking of reaching out to is there's a guy named Rich or Mitch Horowitz. He's a expert on the occult, or at least the modern occult. Um, Trying to think who. I mean, I would love to have Jacques Vallée. I just haven't. I haven't looked up his contact information yet, and Lou Elizondo as well. Travis Taylor. I have his email, and I've interviewed his co-author. His publishing company is also my publishing company. So, uh, but he hasn't responded yet. So I'll try to hit him up once the Whitley Strieber interview's up. I'll try to contact him again. Yeah, yeah. I feel like I need to do a lot more research before I bring him on, just because I haven't read Passport to Magonia yet, and I think I need to read that before I bring him on because he's super sharp, and I want to make sure that I have all my ducks in a row because I definitely prepared for the Whitley Strieber interview, and I think it came out really well. But I did a ton of research to make sure that I could touch on different books and different themes in a very short period of time. So I'm trying to think who else. Um, anybody that was in the Tic Tac incident, like Commander Fravor. Ryan Graves, but I think I reached out to Ryan Graves. No, nothing. So I don't know. We'll see. Um, there's somebody. I think I talked about Deb Cobble, who I'm going to talk to next week. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. I I think it's kind of an all of the above sort of situation. Um, but I don't know. I think the extra dimensional is, somewhat likely. In other word, in other words, maybe it's just a reality that's vibrating at different frequencies, or they're outside of the normal four dimensions of time and space. But I don't know. Like, the more I delve into all these topics, the less I feel like I have a grasp on what's actually going on or the nature of reality. Um, and the more I see news, the more I think that it's almost like it's a cartoon. Like, it's just like, what's the most clownish thing that can happen today, and then it happens. So yeah, I don't know. And then in the training to be a hypnotherapist, what do you have to do in order to be uh I mean, not certified, but to be I mean, it looks like you had 3 semesters, but what do they train you to do? I mean, obviously how to put somebody into that state, how to ask the questions, and then when you have to look at theory and things like that behind it, who do they have you read? Like, who are some of the people in that space? And then once you answer that question, there's 2 other things I wanted to cover, but I don't wanna scare people off, so what and it'll be at the very, 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 very end. Is there anybody else on here who hasn't asked anything? Oh, here we go. Let's see. Interesting. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah, that sounds like in the military combat lifesaver, training where, we all had to IV each other, you know? It was, and I'm the guy with no veins, so I got to be a pincushion. Huh. Yeah, I mean, that's what light is, right? The reason you see color is it's reflecting light at different frequencies. Red's kind of the low on the frequency spectrum, then blue is higher. And yeah, interesting. I mean, how long has hypnotherapy actually been around? Oh, wow. That's crazy. All right. So I'm just going to make this part of the general um, Q&A because I don't think it's necessary for me to have a separate. Oh yeah, yeah, mesmerism. That totally makes sense. Yeah. Huh. I'll look into Gary Lockman. Look him up, see if there's anything good on him. Okay, so it's not even a century old practice. Well, maybe it is, but it hasn't gone. It's only been kind of sanctioned for officially sanctioned for a short period of time. Um, Interesting. All right, so the two other topics, and I'm just going to throw them, but keep asking normal question, regular questions. But so on like t-shirts and stuff like that, does anyone care about that stuff? Is there anything people would like to see that they'd actually want me to produce on this channel? Okay, he's been on New Thinking Aloud. And that's Lockman on New Thinking Aloud. Um, oh, here we go. No, we have that. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. You asked the question, so yeah, obviously it's Lockman. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just being dense. That's on me. Yeah. So if there's any like hats, t-shirts, things like that that people would want to see, um, I mean, it could have anything on it, or if there's like anything like that you want to see, just let me know. That's the only part there. The second topic was, let's see. I have merch, but it's it's just like channel. It's got like channel logo and stuff like that. So if people want to buy that, that's great. But I think it's better to be a little bit more, um, actually have merch that people you know want, right? That they have a stake in and come up with. But yeah, I got t-shirts, coffee cups, hats, stickers, the usual stuff. But anyway, I don't want to get too much into it, but if people have ideas, just let me know. Then the second thing was just on Patreon. Are there things that people would actually want to see as membership, like benefits that people would actually see? Because I'd rather just do things that people want and then create the value. And then if they, rather than just doing like right now, what I currently do is I have like 3 tiers. Um, and the bottom tiers are more kind of a Discord server and I think a few other things. The top 2 tiers, the top tier you get to see a video, about a week in advance or longer each month, and then there's also a Zoom call where people can join once a month. But I haven't. I was actually surprised that somebody signed up the first time, so I created all that very quickly. I haven't really been thoughtful about it. Um, Extended interviews. Hmm. No, but I can look at putting some of that together. Um, or maybe live interviews where they get to ask questions. Um, I have to think about how to do that because the other thing is I want the guests to look to be their look to be at their best. Which is why I edit. I usually have time to edit. Um, they don't get special content; they get content in advance. So when you say special content, what are you thinking about? Because that's not to say that I can't do that. Um, the problem is I don't have critical mass yet, so that's the only thing I'm um, concerned about. Oh, I actually do that for free on Reddit. Um, It's actually not a bad idea though, because I only do it on Reddit if there's a thread that is related. So remote viewing is typically the only one I do for that because I get good responses from the remote viewing group. Whereas like the UFO group is, um, about half of them hate you for just because you post a video, and then you get some love, but that's actually yeah. I think I'm gonna add that's easy. That's an easy one to add, and I can add that on the base subscription. Um, because I think that's helpful. And then there's let me see what else we have. I definitely have early access. So there are interviews that um it's not every interview, but it's like one interview a month where I'll upload it to Patreon and people can see it before everybody else does. Oh, access to the guest. Um yeah, I have to think about that because that's a little bit less under my control. What I could do is I could have like a special live stream every month with like a past guest where people can get on and ask questions. And then I could post those videos um, after the fact, but only people who were on the Patreon could ask. And then maybe I could do like a Zoom link and do it that way. Or I just do it on StreamYard. I'd have to think about a way to do that. And then that way I'm producing content, but I'm also delivering value to people who are subscribers. Um, let's see. Content that non-members don't get. Um, Not yet, but well, it depends, right? There's the Zoom call, which is definitely something non-members don't get. There's also a Discord server that non-members um, don't have access to. Uh, and then of course there's the early access, but okay, this is actually super helpful. Yeah, they're aggressive. They're aggressive, Linda. They're just um and when you get into geopolitics, when I tried to post something on Ukraine, they just spiked it. They wouldn't even show it, which was unfortunate. Um yeah, okay, so with a guest, and then how often would the live stream be the way to go? Well, actually, but um well, there's a live stream aspect, but also if I did like a StreamYard where people could actually jump onto the stream like I'm talking to you here, I could have them when they ask their question, I could have them literally show their face, ask the question, and then drop off, and then the next person could come up. Or it could just be like this, where it's just a live stream, but only um, people who have the Patreon get the access code for the private stream. Which way do you think I should go? Oh, outtakes. Oh yeah, I got. that's, that's a great idea because I was just editing the Lynn Buchanan episode, and there was this point where I was going to talk about this experience I had, which I've edited out because it's just not that. It's an underwhelming experience. It's just 99.999% chance it was a hallucination because of sleep deprivation when I was in the military. But I like built it up. I'm like, let me tell you this story, Lynn, about this thing that happened to me when I was in the army. And then my power went out, and then my like face froze, and then Lynn was just sitting on there, and he's just like perfect. And he's just talking to himself. He's like, perfect timing. He's just like, they got him. They got him. He's like saying stuff like that. It's hilarious, but it's not going to be in the video. It's because it doesn't. Yeah, it's not part of the interview. But that's not a bad idea. Um, it's just how often I do them. That's the only thing that would take some time. But let's see what we got here. Oh, it's there. It's on Rumble. The problem with Rumble is it's supposed to update automatically, but it doesn't all the time for some reason. Even though it says that the episodes are still loading, it'll take some weeks. But I am definitely on Rumble, and I am also on Spotify. And I'm finally so if you want to listen, so Rumble, all the episodes, like everything's on Rumble. On Spotify, it's just the interviews. So I think right now there's about 146 of them that should be posted. So Spotify has them all, and not only are they on video, but they're also like an audio format. So if you just want to listen to it, it's there. And I'm finally monetized there, even though it's like 6 months late. So definitely, definitely, because again, I'm trying to diversify my social media just in case, because you never know. Um, yeah, yeah, I get that a lot. Like people are like, um, again, I'm sure a lot of channels, but like even with the Y files, which is a very highly produced channel, like high video content or high production value channel, it took him forever to get to where well, I mean, actually 2 years. It was pretty fast, but after year one, he was like at 5,000 subscribers, and he produces very high value content. So there's definitely something to that. Yeah, you're right, and that's why I'm asking the question because you guys are giving me tons of great ideas. Um, and I think the outtakes are good. That one I can execute rather quickly. I just don't know how often I would do it. Once a month might be a little bit overwhelming at first, but um, maybe once a quarter, something like that. Let me let me think about that. Yeah, yeah. So again, Spotify hasn't done anything to me yet. So knock on wood. Oh yeah, the live stream piece I think is um, yeah. Let me think about how he would do that. I think David Morehouse might be the one the go to guy for that. I think he'd probably be willing to do that, but I just have to ask him because he's been pretty busy lately. Um, yeah, I should try that. Yeah, I'm again. This is not. Um, there's no reason you should be paying for Patreon or anything like that if if you don't have the resources at the time. Like this is not. I don't want anybody giving me any paying for any service if there's if you got to worry about getting food and all that stuff. Um, but there might be a way that I think I kind of the live stream, and I also just need to do live streams for everybody anyway. So I'll try to do it in a way that's fair to everybody. But I totally understand. Not and if you have any ideas too, just let me let me know. Oh, really? Crypto viewing was gone? Really? Yeah. Yeah. YouTube's kind of. Hopefully, they figure this stuff out. Like I try very hard not to curse, not to do all this other stuff. Because you never know. Because the other thing that they do is whenever they make a policy change, they retroactively apply it, which is not. It's not the way you're supposed to do business, right? You kind of give people kind of the grandfather clause, and um, but yeah, I hear you. Like that's why I diversified from the day I started. Um, And the other thing, that's why I have Patreon as opposed to just YouTube. Makes it very easy to have memberships. So I don't want to keep everything tied to one platform. What do you mean by it's hard to find people on this level? What is that? I'm just curious. I'm not taking it any negative way. I'm just curious. But uh, to answer the first question, I started reading Psychic Warrior by David Morehouse, and he was an infantry officer in the U.S. Army. I was an armor officer in the U.S. Army. So when I read about the training and all that stuff, it rang true. So I knew he was the real deal. And I think I read his book in 2018, and then I also stumbled onto the CIA's website where they have declassified documents about Project Stargate, Grow Flame, Center Lane, Scan 8, all that stuff. And I just, if the government used it for 20 years, it's real, it works. And I think when it came out, the government tried to discredit people because they didn't want the fact, people to know that they could literally go anywhere in space and time and view things, because that's, for people who want to keep secrets, that's a nightmare. So I get why they would try to discredit people and deny it. I mean, they're just doing their jobs. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. Um, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, right now it's not. I've actually seen someone do the real, like, do that switch in real time where they had like 500 patrons, and Patreon kind of threatened them to told them to take down a tweet on Twitter. And that was enough for him. He just said, "You know what? Like, go f yourself. You can't tell me what to say on another platform. It's none of your business." So he immediately migrated all of his subscribers to Subscribestar in like a day. So I kind of know what the playbook is for that. I mean, Patreon hasn't given me any issues yet, so until they do, I'll kind of let it go. That said, PayPal, I canceled. Like, once I found out that they could charge you $2,500 for speech violations, um, at their sole discretion of the corporate, the sole discretion of the corporation, I just, you're done. Canceled my account. I had an account for 10, 15 years. Gone. Let's see. Snip4 is Crypto Viewing the channel that did had all the DMT episodes and stuff like that. There was a really good channel that was narrated by this one guy, and it had some really good episodes about DMT entities and things like that. And then it just vanished without a trace. Is that Crypto Viewing, or is that a different one? Yeah, unless people actually do the research, they have no reason to believe this stuff. Yeah, I mean, there better be. This stuff better exist. Otherwise, what's the point of all this insanity? Uh, I I've tried informally, but um, David Morehouse is gonna start up a class sometime this year, and I'm gonna take it with him because he was the kind of the first person to first kind of high profile person to be on this show, and he's been on a ton of shows, and I get along with him really well. And his style is very much like mine. Like, I'm not. If someone tells me, "Hey, dumb f," "Hey, dumb f," right? Like, you did it wrong. Don't be an idiot. Like, that's the kind of motivation that works with me. Somebody's just direct, and sometimes um, just calls me out. A lot of people are a little bit more sensitive than I am, but that works the best with me. It kind of forces me to focus, and that's more of his style. He's former Army Ranger and stuff like that. And again, I'm a former combat arms officer as well. So the quick answer is I haven't. I've read kind of David's book, but I haven't done formal classes, and I haven't really dug deep into it yet. But I'm definitely gonna definitely hopefully learn it sometime this year. Yeah, I have the same thought, and I've talked to Terry Lovelace about this too. And there's there's some stuff that's happened to me in the past that's just, you know, it could be nothing, but it makes me ask questions. So I told Terry Lovelace there was a dream I used to have as a kid, and I just told him this offline between it was maybe between 5 and 7 years old, and I would go into my sister's room at night, and the wall would kind of just open up, and there would be like this old woman outside, like doing laundry, and it would be daylight outside. And sometimes there would be like a baby in a basket at the door. And I would have this recurring dream during that period of time, and I would wake up horrified. Now, the dream, it's not scary at all if I just relate it to you, but it was so terrifying to me that I remember it. And it was a recurring dream. And Terry said, "Did you have that when you were between 4 and 6?" And I'm like, "Ah, I was between 5 and 7." And he's like, "Do you remember what you got for Christmas when you were 6 years old?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "But you remember the dream?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's just like, that's pretty um that's a pretty common contactee sort of experience. But other than that, I mean, it's just I mean, you could argue it's just a dream. So I'd love to find out because it is pretty weird. And of course, the old lady was like 4 feet tall. It was bright outside, so I told this thing to Preston Dennett, who's a UFO researcher. And typically, when people go outside at night, the it's like daylight outside because these things are so bright. I'm trying to remember if there's any other things that are. Um, and then I've had the experience where if you've ever been in public and you're sitting down, you're drinking a coffee or something, and somebody who's dressed like a homeless person sits down and starts talking to you, and you know within 2 seconds that they're not a homeless person because they're very intelligent, and you're kind of wondering why they have an interest in you and why they're talking to you. I told him that. He's just like, "Oh yeah, yeah, same thing happened to me," and he told me about an experience like that. So I'm reaching for sure, but I've had these, a few small things like that that just makes me question. Um, and there's also other kind of uh, random things that don't like my IQ compared to my siblings is like markedly higher, and they're smart. They're not dumb. Uh, so there's just stuff that just doesn't always compute, but it could be pure coincidence, right? And I'm willing to accept that. In fact, I have accepted that. I've never really delved into this. Oh, like that was up a few days ago, so it's gone now. Unreal, unreal. And YouTube probably didn't explain why they took it down. It's probably because some government entity said Signature Bank almost just failed. You need to cut down on encouraging this crypto stuff. That would be my guess, but I don't know. Yeah, I just just react better. I don't like. I'm not a subtle. If you haven't been able to tell this, I'm not a very subtle person, and I don't like subtlety goes right over my head. Like, I love my wife, but like sometimes I just drive her nuts because she thinks she's, you know, communicated well enough for me to understand, and it just goes right on my head because unless you tell me directly, I have trouble. Right, and I also get myself into trouble. Yeah, that's in fact that's why Terry gave me Yvonne Smith's contact information. Preston Dennett though has warned, he's just like unless you have missing time or something like that. And to my knowledge, I have no missing time. He's just like it might do more harm than good. So we'll see. And then it probably has a price, right? So right now it's just a morbid curiosity. It's not causing any craziness in my life or anything like that. So, oh my god. Yeah, that sounds like I think I've seen um where have I seen that before? Where they stick like where some entity sticks like an implement up somebody's nose. Um Not a spoon, but yeah, yeah, that's I think that's more legit than my weird dream. But my sense in just in talking to people is this experience is more common than it seems. It's just that most people don't remember. Because if you all watch the first Terry Lovelace episode, there were people behind him, like lines of people. Also, if you watch the Lynn Buchanan episode, the if you look at the thumbnail, it says they offered me a job, and it has like an ET looking sort of entity, like a gray. And in that episode, there were also like crowds of people in of humans on the ship that he was on. So um yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we don't fully understand going on in the background. Yeah, right? Like, but they're not like they're clearly not homeless. In fact, they're like super intelligent. And they ask you like these, and you're kind of like, well, what do you do? Oh, I wander. Uh, and then they're just like, it's just weird. I can't explain it, but it was like the guy was not. He was not who I knew to the very fiber of my being. He was not who he appeared to be, and I knew it like that. And I knew he was very intelligent, and that's about it. But again, it could just be some guy who's a hippie and just wandering, right? So, oh, okay. So crypto viewing came back up. What? Wait, so he was skiing in Buffalo. And then he kind of just woke up. Isn't that a like a David Paulides case? I do recall hearing something about that, but I kind of just kind of left my mind. Um, yeah. Temporary amnesia. Linda, what question are you referring to? I'm just being dense. I can't. I'm talking about so many different things. Um, but I'll if I see it again, I'll. Oh, okay. I know. I see you're referring to, Linda. You're referring to the Buffalo guy. Must have gotten to a transport truck in 5 days. Have you ever driven across the country? I've driven across the country 4 times. Four times? It's 3 or 4 times. It takes, even if you're driving like every single day for 20 hours a day at a reasonable speed, though, not like going nuts. You're lucky if you can make it that far in 5 days. You're lucky. I mean, it's highly unlikely. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, what was you gonna say? I was abducted and they dropped me off in California. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And he's probably a young guy too, so it wouldn't have been helpful. Yeah, I think that question's for the A Black B2. Huh. I'll have to take a look. Yeah, he yeah, how do I put this? In a polite uh in a polite way. Yeah, he is his personality is not necessarily conducive to interviewing. Let's just say. I'll give you an example. So part of this narrative in the kind of the 411 uh, points of whatever the characteristics are. One of his things is people of German descent um, are typically abducted. So in his latest movie, there's three people that he mentions. Okay, one person's last name is Gustafson. Another person's last name is Higdon, and then another person's last name is it's like Spin Mater or something like that. Only one of those people has a German surname. Higdon is an Anglo-Saxon surname. Gustafson is a Swedish surname. And in the movie, it's just hand wave. Like, so there's some issues with methodology. I think the overall thing is super interesting, and I think national parks have been uh there's something to it, but um the methodology isn't exactly super sound. I'll give you another example. So, in that movie, the person who went missing, Spin Mater or whatever is the one German name, they found his body 6 weeks before that film, Missing 411, the UFO connection. They authorities found his body 6 weeks before that film aired. Do you ever hear David mention it? No, right? So there is a little bit of a and that's fine. You can ask those questions in an interview, but if you've ever asked him or said something that wasn't 100% kind of my way or the highway with him, I mean, he's blocked me on Twitter, and that's because somebody asked him if he could post his videos on Rumble, and he said something like, "You can't post videos in Rumble longer than 30 minutes." And I just hopefully said, "No, actually, you can." I've posted plenty of videos that are longer than that, and he blocked me. So not he's just kind of not conducive to being interviewed. I don't think. And I think if I asked him any even innocent probing questions, he would, you know, walk off in a tisk. So it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know if that's sloppy work, Linda. I think they probably did that on purpose for whatever reason. I mean, that's a big mistake for billion plus or half a billion plus year old civilization to make. But I don't know. I mean, they put Terry Lovelace's socks on sideways, so maybe who knows? Yeah, I thought about doing that. And that was one of the reasons I moved this to. In addition to not getting in the way of the Y files on Thursdays. But that's one of the reasons I put this on Wednesday is I typically put out one episode on Monday and one episode on Wednesday. And I think what I could do in the future is just publish my videos later in the day and then um, have it right after, or have the live stream right after, say, a Wednesday episode or something like that. And then so I think I'm moving in that direction because I think it gives people something to talk about, and you can make each episode more of an event. So I've definitely thought about that, and I've definitely moved in that direction. So totally agree with that. He makes you pay $30 of shipping on each book. Oh my, yeah. He's like, I haven't quite had the right word, but he's touchy, prickly. That's the word I'm looking for. He's super prickly. So I don't, and the other thing too is like there's a large area of agreement between him and I, and it's just a shame. Like, because I'm also I'm a former tanker. I was on an M1 Abrams tank. I was a tank platoon leader and all that stuff. And I'm like a big friend or foe guy, right? Like, if what do they say about the Marines? I wasn't a Marine. I was in the Army. My head didn't fit into the jar, unfortunately. So, but that's just a joke for all my Marine friends. I don't eat crayons, that sort of thing. But they know I love Marines. They're my brothers and sisters. But wow, where was I going with this? So, I'm one of those guys that if I'm loyal to a fault, but if you turn on me, so I think that's what it was. The Marine Corps. It was like uh, no better friend, no greater enemy. Right. That's kind of my mentality in life. Whereas, if you're a friend, an ally, things like that, I will back you up to the hilt. But the moment you turn on me, you're done. So I kind of feel that way about him. There was no reason for him to create such animosity in some of his followers. But yeah, he'll never be on this show. I can't. I don't think he could handle it because I would ask him just that one question alone about, hey, there's this guy, they found the body 6 weeks before. Why didn't you say anything? And I would ask it very politely, but he would blow up and probably throw down his mic and leave. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to. I shouldn't be super negative, but because he has a very interesting thesis, and I think there's something to it. So separating the theory from the person, I think there's definitely something there, something that should be explored. Um, and he's done good work on it. I just think it's not. There are some methodological cracks in the work that you just need to be aware of. Yeah, super. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't like. I want to be. He has his good moments, right? I used to follow the channel, and I thought it was really interesting. But just for trying to be helpful, you get blocked. Like, come on, man. And I remember he would say things on his channel like, "Oh, YouTube keeps putting these advertisements on my channel, and like they're trying to get people to stop." And it's just like, no, it's not true. You can control. You can configure every single video so that there are no commercials at all. There's no advertisements at all. It is 100%, 100% in your control. And to say otherwise is just you're just lying. You're either just not informed or you're lying. So anyway, I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it at that. But it's just like that kind of stuff. And then if you look into his police record, it, it gets a little. He's not without sin. Just none of us are though. None of us are. So anyway, all right, let's get off the topic. Yeah, you're probably one of the only 20%. Like 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Just like 20% of the people control 80% of the wealth. 20% of people control 80% of the land. 20% of movies make 80% of box office returns. 20% of the venture capital investments make 80% of the value of venture capital portfolios. Those aren't exactly right, but those are all power law distributions. And you're unfortunately the power of the law in that situation. The A black B2. So let's see what else. Man, it was rough at the beginning. There was like one person on this call, and I was just like, and then it always gets better. It always gets better toward the end when people get on. So I appreciate everybody who's been on this call. I think it's been great. I'm missing Bruno though and Kev the Rev. Those two have, I think, by scheduling this on a uh, you know Wednesday instead of a Thursday, I probably threw them off. But I'm gonna look directly into the camera. Kev and Bruno, I miss you. So if you've watched this far, your presence is sorely missed. So I know, but you all guys always comment on the comments. But definitely Wednesdays now. Wednesdays now. Slowly but surely changing this so that I'm not kind of competing directly with a almost multi-million subscriber channel in order to kind of talk through all this stuff. So, all right. Well, anyway, have a good one. The A Black B2. All right. It has been almost 2 hours. Are there any last questions, or does anybody want to talk about any other topics? I can stay on for much longer if people want, but I also don't want people to feel compelled to stay on. So if there's a topic somebody wants to talk about, and by the way, you've all been really helpful too on the Patreon stuff. Like lots of great ideas that I'll consider over the next week or so, and hopefully try to put some stuff together. So anyway, any other questions? Last minute comments, good jokes. You have a good one. And thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. I still have 5 people, but I don't see any more questions. Oh, here we go. Not from you. This is really interesting. Huh. What does not from me mean? I haven't yet because I'm not super familiar with it. I know it's kind of related to The Secret and all that stuff. I'd have to do more research on it to fully understand it. But if you know of people who are experts in this, that's in that area, I definitely would be interested in doing something. The other person I reached out to was Rupert Sheldrake. He's the Morphic Fields guy, but he couldn't do an episode. Richard Dolan can't do one now, but told me, his secretary told me to reach out toward the end of this year. And then Nick Pope, he wasn't, doing a lot of interviews this year. He has a bunch of other things on his schedule. So, those are some other people that I had looked into. Yeah, thank you very much, Millie. Thanks for showing up. And hopefully, I do these once a month, usually on the third week of the month, usually around like the 22nd, usually would be midweek on Wednesday or so. So this is the first time I did it on Wednesday. So used to be Thursday, but I kept running up against the Y files. So it didn't really make sense to me to be doing this. Yeah. Thank you, Edward. And thank you for coming. All right. So I think I'm going to give folks about, so there's kind of a timer I have, about a minute. If I don't get any other questions, have a have a fantastic evening if you're in the United States, and morning, noon, or night if you're somewhere else. I appreciate your time and interest. All right, everyone. Have a great night. And hopefully, I'll see you next month. And I hope you enjoy the episodes I have coming up. Talk to you all soon.